Welcome to linked lists in Python. Let's get right into it. So what is a linked list? Well, a linked list is just like an array, except it stores the data in a series of nodes. Each node has a value and a value or data, same thing, and the next pointer. So this is what a node is, and each node points to each other. So you might be asking, why would we use this over a normal array? Well, you usually don't, except for like leak code and websites like that or interviews. So in an array, I'll draw it out for you. And let's say this is our memory. You have contiguous sections that are right next to each other for the memory. So like you could say this is memory address 1, 2, 3, 4. In an array, they're all adjacent to each other. They're right next to each other in memory. But in a linked list, this memory address could be a 0x hexadecimal, a 0x1, 0x28, and so on and so forth. So essentially what that means is that it's much easier to insert an item into it, because in an array you'd have to copy it over if there wasn't another memory block right after the last element. But in this, you find any available memory and it'll automatically use that instead. So they store the data, which is the first part of the node, and then the second part is the next pointer, which points to the next node. Think about it as a chain. It's like exactly that, except it has a value. So we have our value. This can be any data type, and then it has a next pointer. So for now, right here, this points to this node. So the value of 1 points to the value of 2, and so on and so forth. And at the last element, which is called the tail, the next pointer points to null or none. So that's how you know that you've reached the end. And the first element is called the head, the last element is called the tail. So that's really all you need to know. That's the basics of it. I'm going to show you how to implement it in Python. Okay, welcome to the text editor. So now I'm going to show you how to implement a linked list in Python. So as you know, each linked list contains a node, so we can make a class of node. And go back to the drawing board here. We have each node has a value and a next pointer. So we need to make our constructor, and this will take in the value. And simply all we need to do is set the value in this to the value given, and then the next to none. So this is just like, this is our default value for next. This is going to be changed when you actually create the linked list, but for now we just put the next to none, because we can change this when we get later on. So now really, if you want to do it this way, this is the simplest way to do it. So for example, I can now make some variables of a node of 1. I can make a second one, and I can implement this. So we have, as you see, 4 nodes. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now we can say node 1 next points to node 2, and then node 2 dot next points to node 3. Then node 3 dot next points to node 4. Now you might be wondering, where does node 4 point to? Well, it points to nothing, because it's the end, it's the tail. So that's how you know that you've reached the end of the linked list. For example, if you're traversing it, you know that you've reached the end when the next pointer is none. So now we can print any of these. So we can print the node 1 dot value. We can print the node 1's next. So this is essentially going to be node 2, because we set node 1 dot next to the second node. So now we would be accessing this right here, this node. So now we would say dot value, and we should get 2. So this should print 1 and 2. Let's run this, and we get 1 and 2. Now this works for all of these. And now let's try and print node4.next. Try and guess what this is going to print. Okay, so this prints none because it's the end, it's the tail. So now let's implement it in the main way that you should in Python. So we still keep our node, but this time we're going to make a linked list class, which is going to have the head. So now we make our constructor, which takes in nothing, and we just set the self.head to none. So now you might be wondering, why do we do that? Because we're going to make our own append method, so we can append a value to our linked list. So for example, you see here we have this. Let's say we want to append the node this node to with a value of 5, and then it points to none. Sorry, I'm just drawing this out. So what we would do is we would say this usually points, this pointer right here points to none, but now we want this next pointer to point to this. And then this would be now the new tail, and this wouldn't. So now we've appended a value to our linked list. So let's implement that in Python. Let's get to our text editor. So we can make our append method. And this is going to take in the value to append. So now we can't just append a value by itself, because as you know, if we just append a value, it's not going to have a next attribute, and we don't need that, or we can't have that. And each of these links in our linked list needs to be a node. So we can just say node to append is equal to a new node with the value as the value. So now what we say is we can say if we can make a current variable, right? And we start that off at self.head. So essentially this is just making a copy, nothing special here. And we would say if, so this basically says if the head is already none, which means we have no links in our linked list, we can just say our head is equal to the node to append. So now if we had nothing, like literally if we just had none, our head would now be this node, and then this would just point to none. So now if it's not, we can say else. We will say while current.next. So basically, while our next is something and it's not none, we will just say current equals current.next. So now what we have here is we can just print current.next, and we should get none, which means that we are at the end of our list. Yeah, nothing. Okay, so because I have to call this, but yeah, so this would print none, and now all we need to say is our current.next is equal to our node to append. Actually, I meant to do this outside of this. So now this is very simple. All we're doing is going to the end of the list, of the linked list. So now you see how our current.next is none. So that means that we would be at this. We'd be at this node right now currently. So this would be our current. So now we would say our current.next is this, which is exactly what we wanted. Sorry, okay, so let's get back to the text editor, and now that's how we append. Let's try this out with a variable. So we can just call it linked list, or LL, and we can create a new linked list. So now this is just none, essentially. So if we print the head, this should give us none. Exactly, okay? So now we can say linked list.append 1. Let's run that. We should get no errors. Okay. So now our linked list is like this. We have 1, which is a node, and then it points to none. So now if we print linked list.head, it should give us this, which is a node, so we have to say node.value, and that would give us 1. So now let's we can append a couple more, just so we have I'll do how we did in our example. So we'll have, so this linked list is just what we have here in our example. And now let's make a new method here to print our list. This will take in nothing, and we need to say our current is our head, so same concept as we did here, just making a copy. Then we say while cur is not none. This is essentially just this, but without the next. So we're going all the way to the end. We want to print our current dot value. Then we want to print this. This can be anything. This is just like a way of saying next, I guess you could say, but that can be anything. And so what this does is it just prints our value, and then it prints space this, and then it doesn't have a new line ending. So then all we need to say is current equals current dot next. So now we know that we're at the end of our linked list. So now we can just print none. So essentially, if we clear this, make sure we got no errors, and then we call print list, we should get 1 points to 2, points to 3, points to 4, and 4 is our tail, so that points to none. So this is pretty much the basics of a linked list, and I'll see you guys in the next one.